sports is simply the vehicle. It's the methodology. One of the biggest lessons that sports has to teach us is the value of love.
Dedication. Dedicate has two definitions: to make holy and to stick at something for a very long time. We make things holy by committing to them for a very long time. The following guest has done exactly that. Welcome to Grateful and Full of Greatness. I'm your host, Mark Lassini. On this podcast, I sit down with guests who, in my opinion, live their lives with the pursuit of greatness in mind. This platform allows me to discuss and to explain strategies that go into reaching peak performance. This is episode 67. My guest is Dr. Jerry Lynch, a student and a coach of the mind for over 40 years. Dr. Lynch has worked with, and this is hard to say, over 125 championship teams as a sports psychologist. He is the founder of Way of Champions and an author of 18 books and counting. I'm taken back by his influence to this field, his ability to connect with others, and his dedication to sports psychology. Before I got into this field of sports psychology, I thought one day I will be sitting down with the greatest minds inside of it. And I'm doing that exactly here today. So I'm very, very grateful for the opportunity to do this. And without further ado, Dr. Jerry Lynch, thank you for being here.
Well, I'm feeling the same elevated emotions that you're feeling. And I feel honored to be in a position where you're inviting me to perhaps make a difference in the lives of your listeners. And that's why I still work, by the way. I'm not working to make a living. I'm working to make a difference, and you're providing that. So I'm blessed. Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I not only feel that, but I come from the same wavelength. And where I wanted to start out is I was listening to some of your videos online. I was listening to other podcasts, and the word that kept jumping through to me is empathy, and the root of that meaning to feel into. And it's obvious to me that you, as a leader and as a speaker, you have this ability to find common ground before you take people to higher ground. That's kind of how I was looking at it. So could you talk a little bit about where that empathy comes from? Have you always had it? Is it something you cultivated over time?
Oh boy, let me backtrack a bit, because you said something in the introduction here, and here's where I go into intergalactic bliss and get away from what your question is, right? I I can't. It's hard for me to stay on task. I think I'm a little. I don't know what it is. I think I have a focus problem. But you mentioned that I'm a student, and I appreciate that. And the reason is because I'm a lifelong learner, and so I'm always learning. And back to your question about empathy. No. I didn't have empathy. Empathy is, it's actually connected to love. In order to have empathy, you must love someone. You must love something to empathize with them. And I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. Okay, so we can stop right there. I mean, there's this. I did not grow up in an environment of empathy. If anything, it was quite the opposite. And but over time, I realized that if I'm going to make a difference in the world, and if I'm going to be a servant, which I see myself as being, if I'm going to serve people and serve them well, I better get to know something more than just what I see. It better be something more along the lines of what I feel, and that feeling is where empathy comes in. You cannot have empathy. You cannot empathize with people unless you have feelings. And over time, I've practiced being empathic, trying to get into the not mind of the person, but into their heart. And perhaps if they gave me permission, I'd get into their soul. And that's a long journey, but it requires love. It requires the skill set to truly deeply listen to somebody. And when we do that, we make a connection, and it demonstrates caring, and it empowers other people. And when that happens, they will open their hearts, right? I mean, the person needs to open their heart so you can come in and do the work. And the only way to enable them to open their heart is they need to trust you. I don't open my heart to everybody. I'm opening it to you because I trust you. And sometimes trust takes many years. Sometimes it's instant. And I think I felt a connection with you instantly. And I said, if I'm going to go do this work with Mark, I better open my heart, give you a chance to jump in, and then you give me a chance to jump in. And that's when the best work is done, not head to head. It's heart to heart. And which comes back to this idea of, boy, am I going on? But
I
but the thing,
love it. Continue.
okay, so the thing is, uh, I'm not talking about sports psychology here. On paper, and my beginnings were all sports psychology. But Mark, to be honest with you, and in all respect to all psychologists out there who are doing great work, sports psychology is a great science. It is, but it doesn't go far enough. And that's why I decided to take a different path. It approaches the soul of another, but it doesn't quite get there. So what I did was I went into something other than sports psychology. It's more like sports. I'd call it sports spirituality. The spirituality of the athlete is going deeper into the soul, and I'm talking about courage and perseverance and grit and fearlessness and tenacity and uh, fortitude. Fortitude wins world wars. Where does that come from? It's not a mental thing. So so I got really into getting more or less away from the sports psychology, although I still use it, and I work with the mind and performance. But I really want to know about you, and that's empathy. That goes full circle back to your question, and I'm going to stop right there because you have so much more to say.
Well, I'll pick it up. And I was tracking you, and I could probably say five different things, but I'll just start here. One of the things that I loved as I was listening to you, and as the listeners will come to hear, we have mutual connections in our background through the sport of lacrosse. And it resonated to me, that spirituality side of you. Now, my number one core value is my faith. It drives every single thing that I do. And I was listening to you speak to Middlebury athletes about the three talents, and maybe 100% of them have the physical, roughly 40% of them have the mental, and then you were saying roughly 2% have that spiritual, or at least train that spiritual. And coming from that lens of faith being something that drives what I do, I would just say that I want to meet you right there today, and then keep going on that journey. I had the privilege of going over to Japan three times so far, just to teach lacrosse. And while I was there, we actually saw sumo wrestlers. And it was really cool to learn about that. And of course, that has something to do with sport. But in Japan, there's roughly 600 sumo wrestlers. At the very top division, there's like 40 to 60, right? So only 10% are in that very top, and they get the best treatment, the best access, the best all of this. And before I left, because this is just me, I'm so curious, like all the lacrosse players are leaving, and I go up to the person that was running it and I said, those ones at the top, how do they do it? Tell me about those ones. And I pulled out of my wallet, and I still have it, and this is from years now. She wrote these symbols down here, right? And I'm just going to read it. It says Shin Ji Tai, and that's spirit, technique, and physical. And she was pounding on her chest to talk about it, right? The ones that go through don't just have the physical and the technique of grappling, right? But they have that mind, that spirit, that heart, what
Yeah.
you were just pointing to.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because the number one thing that she mentioned was spirit. And, that's the spirituality of not just sport, but the higher game, the bigger game, the most important game, the game of life. And again, getting back to sports psychology, I didn't find many colleagues that were interested in life as much as they were in winning a championship. And I never cared about winning a championship. I just wanted to see that we can connect with soul and learn these lessons for life. And I believe that's what you've learned, and that's what you have observed in your experiences going to such a spiritual country that's driven by uh, the Buddhist concepts of transformation, such as Japan. I mean, I wrote a book. There's only one. Most of the books that I've written uh, have included Eastern thought. I include Eastern thought, Native American tradition, Celtic wisdom, and Christian mysticism in
Mm,
my work,
mm,
and it permeates every aspect of my work. All of those cultures, okay, are driven by the spirit, by the spirituality of life, and you know, results, uh, outcomes usually are the byproduct of how we are connected to our souls, how we are connected to. It's not the way we're thinking; it's the way we're feeling. It's not what we're doing; it's how we're being. We're human beings, not human doings. And so we're trying to be a certain way. In order to be a certain way, we have to know who we are. Maybe the most important question is, who am I? And really dive into that. And then we do is get a sense of self and self-awareness, which is really not spoken about in the sports psychology circles that I've been privy to. And so I know there's so much more. So we can get so much deeper. And again, I don't want to go into that intergalactic bliss state. Uh, I got to remember my zip code where I live, right? But you're you're dealing you're dealing with the sport of we're dealing with the sport of lacrosse in this conversation. I mean, lacrosse meaning the cross. That's this. And what did someone tell me one time is when you hear thunder, that's the angels and God playing lacrosse in the sky. And and it's like it's all of that and more. And that's how that sport came about. And that's what really attracted me so much to the game. Yes, we were winning 7 consecutive national championships at Maryland with Cindy Timshall and her wonderful, and Gary Gade, and we had a wonderful team. But the thing was, we were winning life. I still get 10 years later, 15, 20 years later, I get emails and texts from these athletes who said, Jerry, those lessons that we learned, I can't believe how valuable they've been to me in my life, raising children, having my community. And so if anything, the listener to your program has already been marinated in this thought process of, this is something bigger than just sport. And inviting me on the show, you knew you were going to get that. And, and
absolutely.
and so I can't go in the other direction. I can't talk about the 5 mental strategies to help you score more points or win games and stuff like that. I mean, that's all good, and I want to win. Believe me, my team, the Sharks, won last night. I mean, I work with them, and I want to win. But the thing is, even when we're not winning, and we don't win a lot, when we're
Mm,
not winning, we are winning. And and,
mm,
and I see these young men developing as men, as brothers, as a family, and coming together and having each other's back for the bigger game of life. These guys will fight and battle on the ice for each other, the brotherhood. And that's the essence of it. And again, I'm so fortunate to be able to come back to your statement about uh, these warriors in Japan, these sumo wrestlers. I mean, they're true warriors. They're warriors. The spirit in which they go about their game is all internal, and you saw that, but you also felt it. Again, I my book, The Competitive Buddha. I don't know if you've seen it, but just based on what I know about you at this moment, Mark, people think it's an oxymoron. The competitive Buddha? You know what I'm saying? So that the Buddha was one of the first student athletes ever. Was quite an athlete. He was an amazing marksman. Talk about wrestling. He was one of the greatest wrestlers of his age, of his time. So he was athletic, and his whole idea of competing is comes not comes from, but is like the French word, uh, the Latin word, excuse me, compatire, which means to seek together. So the Buddha would compete not to win the wrestling match. He would use the wrestling match as a way of getting to understand himself and how to be a better version of himself and how this would all unfold. So competition, compatiere, for the Buddha was, the definition is to seek together our greatness. Imagine you and I running up a hill, running up those mountains in back of you. Imagine going together, and someday I'm feeling really all my chi and all my energy, and you're trailing behind me, and you're digging down deep with everything you've got to pull it out to stay up with me. And at the top of the mountain, we hug each other. And you say to me, I love what you did. I found out a level I never knew I had. And therein lies the competitive Buddha. And that's why I wrote that book. But it permeates everything that I do.
I like that because I didn't know where to go with my next thought with you because you're giving so much gold there that I have. Oh, I can build off of that. Oh, I can build off of that. But I'm going to take that last little piece that you said there. I heard this and I really believe that it's true. Um, you can replace the first word with whatever you want. You can call it safety, you can call it security, you can call it faith, you can call it trust or confidence. Let's use confidence for right now. Confidence is not the absence of threat, but the presence of connection. Confidence is not the absence of threat, but the presence of connection. And when you're a little kid and you're scared of that thunder and lightning, right? The thunder and lightning doesn't go away, but when you're held by somebody, right, you become calmer. And then what about the monster under the bed? The monster under the bed doesn't go away, but if somebody's there to hold you again and you're connected, then you feel okay again. And the same thing happens to the middle schooler at recess, right? That's isolated and feels disconnected. Hey, do you want to come play with us? And immediately you get to at ease again. And I think that really has been resonating with me lately, not just on the sports psychology side, but also as a teammate and as a professional lacrosse player. I think about how can we get more connected? Something that I say in the locker rooms, especially when it becomes playoff time. And the guys on my team know I go back to this all the time. I always say, when the pressure hits, we're the more connected group. When the pressure hits, we're the more connected group. That's something that I'm always repeating, right? Because it's very easy to feel that stress and want to run in different directions away from each other rather than digging in and getting
Yeah.
closer and closer.
Yeah. Well, I like what you're saying. I think it's brilliant, and especially because you are an athlete in the trenches on the field, and also you aspire to be a trainer of the heart and mind. So it means a lot to me what you're saying. Uh, my take on that idea of pressure in that moment is our interpretation of that pressure. So it's a what's the word? Um, okay, so forget the word, which I have. What that pressure is, it can be interpreted as something good or something bad. Good pressure is, hey guys, this is an opportunity. It doesn't get much better than this. This pressure that we're feeling, we can come together and galvanize, or we can go our separate ways and fall apart. We can become a bundle of sticks, which you cannot break, or we can become individual sticks, which are easy to
Mm,
break. So
mm.
what a wonderful gift. I love this time of the game. I love this time of the season. I love what this has been presented, why this has been presented to us. That situation of having that monster under the bed, we can befriend that monster, and maybe it doesn't become a monster. It becomes a partner. It becomes a friend. It becomes a part of the family. Because the more we try to fight that monster, the bigger it comes, the bigger it becomes, and the less control we have over it. And we don't have, you talked about confidence. The thing that comes to my mind, and maybe I'm rambling on here, but the thing is, confidence to me is always a product of what we're thinking about. And confidence is a thought process. If I'm thinking about outcomes and results, and I'm on let's go to basketball, I'm on the foul line with the front end of a 1-and-1, and the game, we're down by 1 point. I have to hit that shot, right? That's a lot of pressure. So I'm thinking about that, and all of a sudden my confidence goes down. When my confidence goes down, I get tight, tense, and tentative. So I'm decreasing the chances of the right outcome happening. Now, if I'm not focusing in on the outcomes and results, but I choose to focus in on what I can control, because I can't control if the ball is going to go in the basket. I cannot control that. I can influence it. I cannot control whether the ball will rip the back of the net, but I can influence it. So I'm on the front end of a 1-and-1. My confidence will go up if I'm focusing in on what I can control. And what can I control? I can take one very deep breath. I can say to myself, I'm good. I can do this. Watch me, which is an affirmation. It's positive. It's forward movement. And then you get up to the line. And what you do is you execute all the little things, the touch of the ball rolling off your fingers, and you visualize in a space of 10 seconds exactly how, or you you feel the feeling, and go ahead and proceed. You might not get the basket, but you'll increase the probability of it happening. So it's all intertwined, and I really do think that making the most of what we've been given, I think we have to take what we've been given and frame it in a way that it's going to teach us the lesson that we need to learn, which is why we've been given what we've given.
This episode is brought to you by Thorne Health Tech. Which company do you trust when it comes to your health? Thorne Health Tech provides over 190 supplements and products necessary to avoid deficiencies and optimize mental acuity, holistic health, speed, strength, and conditioning. For years, I've taken their amino complex, whey protein, and elite multi AM and PM vitamins. I'm proud to represent Thorne. Why? Because their quality of products is the highest, as well as purity and potency of every supplement. They're backed by the Mayo Clinic. The raw materials that go into the supplements are NSF certified for sport, as well as tested and retested to meet Olympic standards. So if you're looking to optimize your performance and get to the next level, whether it's to meet your protein thresholds or just optimize holistically, trust Thorne. To get started, enter your email and enjoy 25% off at thorne.com/u/Mark That's thorne.com/u/Mark. Enjoy. Now, back to the episode. Intertwined, interconnected. One of the things that really has me gripped, actually moves me to tears sometimes, because it's almost like a pain to know so much. You hear that people go to the doctor and 60 to 90% or more is just caused by stress, right? A compile amount of stress, and people go and usually get a copy of cortisol of something, whether they go to a dermatologist or anything that has ologist at the end, right? They usually get a copy of cortisol, which is a stress hormone, because they've had chronic stress for too long. And when I hear you say interconnectivity, this is what I've been talking about and thinking about a lot lately, is the worst thing that can happen to a performer is their vision starts to narrow, their heart gets too high, their inner dialogue gets negative, and it turns into this downward spiral where the whole game speeds up. And that's really judgmental. It's very closed off. Everything gets tight, tense, and tentative, just like you said. And then the opposite of that, which you speak a lot about, not just in your engagements, but also in your books, is mindfulness and curiosity. Marissa Peer said, all cures come from curiosity. I love that. And it's this idea of just opening up and opening up. And that happens to you physiologically as well. Your muscles tension decreases, but your vision opens up. And then the
Yeah.
best thing that can happen to an athlete is the game slows down. But I just
Mm.
love the interconnectivity of all of that, right? Your breath rate with your narrative, with your physiological response, with your vision, right? And that's it can be practice, which is a really cool idea. But I just think the perspective that we're sharing here, the intertwined or interconnectivity of it all, and understanding that if you can come from a place of mindfulness and curiosity, rather than this is a threat to defeat, it's a challenge to meet, that makes it a lot more peaceful and opportunistic rather than an obstacle. What do you think?
What do I think? I I think that what you're saying is spot on, and and I believe in all of this conversation and the direction it's going. And the most important thing for me is not just to have this conversation, but to live this. It- I think the important thing for the listener to understand is it's one thing to have strategies and techniques and tools, but they're there for a purpose, and the purpose is to learn how to implement that in all of life. And when you start implementing it in all of life, then it really makes sense. I often tell people, I said, if my when I'm in the middle of a conference and uh, I'm working with people in a large group, the thought comes into my mind: am I being me? Am I really
Mm,
being genuine and authentic? Because if I'm not, then all you're getting is information. And we're drowning in a sea of information, Mark. You know that. And so why are people there? They're not there for information. They're there to feel me and to be together and experience what we're learning, to experience it. The reason why I bring this up is there was a lot of time in my life that I spent not being me, not being
mm,
authentic, not being genuine.
mm,
I thought I was, but I wasn't. And a good test of that is if my kids would come into the room that I'd be working, which they didn't, only on occasion. Uh, they wouldn't sit there puzzled like, who is this guy? Like what? Oh, I see. So he has his game face, and then he has his dad face, and then he has his fifth, and so it was so important for me to be who I am, to have congruency, to be congruent.
mm.
And maybe I'm trying to drive this conversation in a direction that you don't want to go, but
Happy to go there.
okay, so I really believe uh everything in life is a result of being uh true to yourself, being who you are, being authentic and genuine. The greatest coaches, Steve Kerr, Phil Jackson. The reason why I'm friends with these people is because they're genuine and they're authentic, they're vulnerable, they're all of these qualities, these spiritual qualities, these deep soulful qualities. They're being themselves, and they're just as if we're talking about being an athlete on the lacrosse pitch, you've got to be you. You can't be, Mark should not go out there and try to be Gary Gate, uh, and uh, and Gary Gate shouldn't go out there and try to be Mark. And although he's not playing anymore, I don't think. But having said that, you know, sports is a major vehicle. I love sport. I can't approve of the direction a lot of it's going, especially in college. Oh my God, geez, wow, it's not the same. Coaches are leaving and coaches are retiring. They can't put up with it. The uh, the NIL, the NIH, the portal, uh, changing schools, getting more money, blah blah blah, on and on. We're not being we're not connected. We're not. It's losing its purpose. It's losing its meaning to me, and it's hard to watch.
A few thoughts on that.
Yeah,
One, I would say
bring me back.
when you're with the crowd, as it was said to me by one of the mentors that I have, Dr. Rob Gilbert, he says you're there for inspiration, not information. Right? Information's all around. They can get that anywhere, but it's more about energy, engagement, and empathy, that feeling into that you talk
Right,
about, not the
right,
visualization, but the feelization
right.
of being embraced kinesthetically. One of the things I absolutely loved about the way of the champion is how you started it off with self-awareness. I can't get underneath that, Jerry. That is the number one element to excellence that I believe. Like I know that to know yourself, to know what irritates you, to know your strengths, to know your
Yeah,
weaknesses, and
yeah,
then to be able to view the obstacles, the triggers, the things that irritate you as a place where treasure is held on the other side of it. I think your face is going to light up when I talk about this because I heard you whisper in a podcast your love for a river as a metaphor. Okay. And I want to go there because when I was the officiant for my sister's wedding, I expressed the following line. My brother-in-law, her husband, is from Missouri. And I shared this idea as a famous Pulitzer Prize winning journalist from Kansas City, Missouri, Hal Boyle once said, what makes a river so peaceful to people is that it doesn't have any doubt. It is certain to get where it is going, and it doesn't want to go anywhere else. And I shared that because there's this underlying confidence that a river has, a purpose, a thing that it's going towards. And when you shared right there, Jerry, about sports losing its purpose through NIL and the transfer portal, it's really becoming what it's not, where sport is where we connect. Sport is where we communicate. It's where we problem solve. It's where we go on that journey together towards a common goal uphill. So I bring in the river here because I know it's so important to you, but also having that your own self-awareness and then using that awareness to authentically connect with the teammates that you have.
Well said. I love the way you express that, Mark. Uh, the river is water, uh, and in Chinese philosophy, the Tao talks about the Tao means the way, and it's the watercourse way, and water is very fluid. Water is the softest substance you'll ever touch. How many substances can you touch where your hand goes right through it? But yet it wears away rock, and it lights up cities. I'm a block from the ocean. If I wait about another 75, 80 years, I might be beachfront property, because the water is just wearing away it's eroding all of the rocks out here, you know. Uh, but the river is a wonderful metaphor for life, which comes back to this whole idea and the purpose of being here is understanding that sports is simply the vehicle.
Mm,
It's the methodology. We could
mm,
use music. We could use architecture. We could use literature. Uh, we could use medicine. We could use almost any venue out there. Sports is just a vehicle. It gives us the opportunity to grow, the opportunity to expand, the opportunity to learn the deeper lessons of life. I mean, where else, in a 1 hour lacrosse game, you tell me if I'm wrong, but you probably experience almost every emotion in the
oh,
psychological lexicon within 1 hour. Now, if I'm not a lacrosse athlete, I'm walking around, I'm going shopping, blah blah blah. That same level of emotional connection to life, to yourself, the ups and the downs, the challenges and the beauty and all of that. It might take me 5 years to experience all those emotions, and you're getting them in an hour. By God,
mm,
don't we want to learn from that? And when we do, we're not only better athletes, and our performance will get better. There's guarantee of that. So I don't have to train you to perform better. I need to train you to observe and to be a better learner and a better student of life by using everything that sports is going to be able to teach me. One of the biggest lessons that sports has to teach us is the value of love.
Mm.
I'm writing a new book right now as we speak. In fact, it's almost completed, and I'm to get it into the publisher's hands in 2 weeks. So I'm under the gun here, and yeah, and the name of it is Dare to Love,
Mm.
and it's going to be one of my best books ever, because I really, after 50 years of doing this work, or 45 years, uh, I have boiled everything down. All our conversation today, everything comes back to one of two things. It's that simple. And everyone's looking for answers, and they're reading thousands of books, and they're trying to figure out the answers to all the situations. I've got the answer. I'm 100% certain I know what the answer is. And the answer to performance, to understanding, and all of this is love, not fear. So on the one hand, we come from a place of love, which is giving, selflessness. I've got your back. I'm there for you. I'm going to work hard. I'm putting it all out on the field. That's all love and connection and caring and empowerment. You know, Mark, I love the way you conduct this podcast. I love the fact that you prepared so well for this. It's obvious to me. That's love. I'm giving you I'm making connection with you. I'm empowering you. So in sports, I'm writing this book. The subtitle is The Greatest Leadership Success Strategy Champion Coaches Use to Forge Relationships and to Drive Winning. Relationships over here, winning over here. Uncontrollable, controllable. You can't control the outcome, but you can control the relationship piece. So I'm writing this book. Why? Because after all of these years, and listener, please listen up to this. I have looked at all of these books. I have written a lot of books. I've gone to conferences. I've put on conferences. I continue to search. I'm a learner. I'm a seeker. And I continue to search for answers, for ways, for meaning, for purpose. And sports is a venue, a vehicle to make me take that inner journey. And what I have found, I'm sharing with you today, which is what the Beatles said in the 1960s, all you need is love. And by love, I'm not talking about the touchy-feely 1960s love fest. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about what Phil Jackson said. Phil Jackson, and I quote him, said, it takes so much to win an NBA championship. It takes talent, it takes grit, it takes fearlessness, it takes all these things. But if it doesn't have this one ingredient, no championships will be had. And this is coming from 11 rings in NBA World Championships. He said that one ingredient is love. And the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is fear. I believe 98% of the population in the world, whether you're an athlete or not, comes from a place of fear. We're all afraid. We're afraid we're going to look stupid. We're afraid we're going to fail. We're afraid we're going to let people down. We're afraid we're not good enough. We're afraid. We're constantly fearful. And what happens when you're fearful? You get tight, tense, and tentative. How does your performance look? How's it going for you? Not too good. But when you come from love, love is courage, grit, tenacity, fearlessness, selflessness, giving to others. That's love. And when we function from love, our performance goes sky high. So I don't need techniques. I don't need strategies in sports psychology to help your mental game go, to take you to another level. If I can get to your soul and you can get to your soul and we can join at that point, and you find out what courage is all about, and you find out what love is all about. Oh my God, those 125 championship teams that you mentioned that I've been part of, guess what? They all had the secret sauce. They all had the love. They all had the connection. They all had the caring. One of the chants that we used to shout out in practice in Maryland, women's lacrosse, with those 7 consecutive national championships, was we come together, we play for each other, we love each other, and we win together, we lose together, we love each other. And then we take a moment to look around in each other's eyes, because after you say you love somebody, you better look at them and be accountable. And the eyes are the windows to the soul. The eyes are the windows to the soul. And so we look in each other's eyes. I know whether you've got my back. I know whether you love me. I know whether you're here. I know what's going to go.
This is what I'll say about the love. I just spoke the other week at IMLCA. It's a big men's lacrosse coaches convention,
No.
and I didn't shy away from talking about dedication and gratitude, because there's a lot of people in there that have been coaching the sport of lacrosse longer than I've been alive. So I felt like, who am I to be in this room? But then I used that word love. And conceptually, how I've been able to digest it is love means to make better, right? Like, it's a spirit that you come into something with. And Jerry, sometimes I find myself navigating into the clinical side and then back into the sports side and then into the
Right.
therapy side, because it's all on a
Yeah.
continuum. And
Yeah.
you hear about this chronic stress that I mentioned earlier. You hear about addiction. You hear about, like you said, too much information and anxiety coming from complexity. And a lot of that addiction, chronic stress, and things like that is simply that feeling of disconnection. Therefore, the language that people use blows my mind. I have to put the top of my head back on, Jared, because they say things like, when I had the heroin, it felt like a warm hug. When I had the drink, it felt like somebody was holding me. When I, you know, it, so you're absolutely right in this love thing. But my question to you, Jerry, why do people shy away from it? Why would so many teams or individuals shy away from love? What have you found
Oh,
there?
okay. So excellent, brilliant question. Why people are afraid? It's a fear. But before I address that, my mind is racing. You're throwing out a lot to me as well here, and I'm picking up so much of what you're saying. Uh, I never want to see you go in front of a group of people who were born way before you and feel hesitant about talking your truth. Talking your truth is not about how much experience you have or how old you are, whether you're the young guy on the block. I've gone through that. Now there's no one ever older than me now in the room. But I don't want to use age as a card, you know. And you have great things to say, some brilliant ideas and thoughts, and people need to hear them. Is what I'm saying to you. That's just my affirmation in trying to send back to you some of the love. Why are people not using love? Well, first of all, it is the greatest leadership strategy. It's the greatest performance strategy. It is, and I can prove that. Now, here's the deal: we're afraid of it because we don't know it. We don't know what it is. This is why I'm writing this book, and it says "dare to love." Dare, I dare you. It means take the chance, take the risk, take the opportunity, be brave, be bold, you know, demonstrate your love, be caring, be this way. Don't talk about it. So people are afraid that they can't do it. I'm writing this book because I can show you how to implement it. And I have 25 Hall of Fame iconic coaches like Steve Kerr and
Wow.
Phil Jackson and Dean Smith, who have talked about this with me over the years. I have them writing. Of course, Dean's no longer with us, but Coach Smith. But I have them writing in this book 2 to 3 pages each. What what love is to them, how they've
Mm.
implemented it in their culture, and what it's done for them. How powerful is that? That's not Jerry speaking. That's these coaches that we all admire. And between them, they all have over 250 national, world championship, state. I have high school state champions talking about love. To your point, we're afraid of it because you know what? It's not scientific.
Mm,
It's too soft,
mm.
but soft is strong. Look at water. Get back to water. It lights up cities. It wears away rock. It's the softest substance you'll touch. Soft is strong. There's a whole new breed of coaches now finding out. That's why Steve Kerr is so emblematic of what we're talking about, because he demands from his athletes, but the reason he can demand so much is because there's a foundation of love, and he talks about it. So many people are afraid. Oh my God, it's again this whole idea of touchy feely stuff in the 1960s. But I define love, and I take a whole chapter to define what love is, and I never stop talking about it, and I define it over and over again. And what comes down to is it's the willingness to open your heart and give and give and give and not think about what you're getting. And you become a servant. And that's our purpose in life. You know, the first servant leader was Jesus. I'm not going religion on you. I know you're a man of faith. I've done my research. Am I right?
That's correct.
Now, having said that, we go back to such a role model as Jesus being the servant leader. And so it filters down through the ages. And all great leaders, all great performances have come from that one place. And so we're afraid of it because we don't know it. But you know what's interesting? I'll go into a room, and I have done this. I'll go into a room of 3,000 coaches. I was in New Zealand many years ago, and we had coaches coming from all over Southeast Asia, all over the place. And I walk and I say, raise your hand if you don't want to feel, raise your hand if you don't want to feel respected, relevant, important, valued, empowered. Raise your hand if you don't want to feel that way. Not one hand went up in that room. 3,000 coaches, 4 different continents, 15 different religious backgrounds. No one raised their hand. What does that tell me? Tells me that we crave what we're talking about. We
Crave,
crave connection. We
crave.
crave caring. We crave, that's why we have children. That's why we love family. I'm
Mm,
creating family. All of my
mm.
championship teams became family. At times I felt like I was the father of so many children because that's what the love did. All your listeners right now, raise your hand if you don't want to be loved. Oh, you do want to be loved? That's what we're talking about. Raise your
Right.
hand if you don't want to be cared for. Raise your hand if you don't want to feel relevant and important. And by the way, how about bringing it together with this? Those words I just used, relevant, important, valued, empowered, and respected. River,
Ah,
the river. So we come back to the river. We talked about how powerful it was, right? Now what I
right.
want to do is I want to marinate you in the river, Mark.
Mm,
I want to let you know that you're important to me. I want to let you know that I value the work that you're doing right here, not just because it's with me, but because you're reaching so many people and you're creating change in the world. You're making a difference. You're bringing your lacrosse learnings and all of the things that the lessons that you're learning, and you're bringing it here and you're sharing it with the rest of the world. That means a lot to me. You're important to me. People like you, I want you out there. You see what I'm saying? I'm bathing you in the river.
I, I,
I'm
I
not
don't
I'm not
just
I'm not waiting to do this. We'll do it now.
I don't just hear you. I feel that, and thank you for saying that. A few things come to mind. I had my mentors on the last podcast during the holiday season, and I finished the podcast by talking about this alchemist quote that said, "When you want something bad enough, the whole world conspires to help you achieve it." But there's only other one quote from that book, The Alchemist, that has stuck with me because it's repeated, and they say, sometimes in life there's no way to hold back a river. And that's what it always comes back to. Sometimes in life there's no way to hold back a river. And it basically is talking about the inevitability of some things, like you saying love coming back to the forefront. Second thought out of three here would be pain is inevitable, but suffering is not. I heard recently that suffering is correlated with resistance. So the more you resist what's currently happening, right, the more suffering you will go through. And three things that trigger suffering are loss, less, and never. So if you always are reminded of a loss that you have, if you feel less than, right, less loved, less than enough, all that, or that is never going to happen in my life, those things trigger suffering. So there
Right.
has to be a correlation there between love and acceptance, in my opinion. And then because you brought up the faith side and the servant side, so my mother always says to me, "There's too much of anything in life is not good enough, good for you except love." So she has instilled that into me since I was a little boy. And one of the things I was talking to her because she's also very faith filled, and I've been chewing on it. I'm like, what does it mean? There's a Bible verse that talks about the last shall be first and the first shall be last. And I was like, what does that mean? Like, why? Why is that the case? And it must be something to do with, Jerry, what you're talking about in terms of servant. It must be doing living in such a way where you grow and aspire, and then inspire, breathe life into other people, and then contribute back. It must be something along the lines of service.
Are you kidding me? You are so spot on with that. Of course, absolutely. You're saying so much here that I'm having a hard time breaking it down. I mean, you're throwing out some things here that I say, yeah, 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 yeah. I don't want to bypass it. Let me back up with you for a minute here. Let me try to do this.
Please,
So you
please.
mentioned The Alchemist by a Brazilian author, Paulo Coelho. Don't read my books. If you have to read, yeah, read my books. But if there's only one book you have to read, pick that up. I mean, that's a brilliant book. I mean, uh, I remember the story in there, the boy going across the vast desert and having nothing and being afraid and all of a sudden he meets this caravan who has everything he needs because he had the trust and the courage and the fearlessness and the willingness, all these deep soul values and virtues to go on and on and on. And then all of a sudden he looks down the road and he sees the oasis appearing on the horizon just about the time he was about to give up. Oh my God, right? Okay, so anyway, read The Alchemist. That's one of the best, finest books, and he's a great writer too. And being an author myself and a writer, I wish I could write like him. I mean, he's just brilliant.
Mm.
The other thing that you said was, hold you can't hold back the river. To which I say, why would you want to? The river is the flow. It's the flow of life. It's symbolic of life's flow. And in life, let me throw it out to you this way. In life, sometimes life goes so fast you can't keep up with it. Well, isn't that the river in the Narrows? When it gets into the Narrows, it speeds up. But then sometimes it comes to this big open area, and it doesn't even look like it's moving. And doesn't life sometimes just slow down to a place you feel like you're not getting anywhere, or you feel like you're really stuck and you're not, moving forward? And then all of a sudden, guess what? Oh my God, the sun is over my back now. I was going into the sun. I'm going the wrong way. I'm going the wrong way. The river, if you're in a plane and you're looking at the Mississippi River, there's parts of it from 30,000 feet up that it looks like it's going north. But the river goes south, doesn't it? But if you're in that river, you feel like you're going the wrong way, you might get out of the river. Don't slow it down. Don't force it. Don't make it to do anything. And even if you feel like you're going down the wrong way, there's lessons to be learned about that. And you've got to be patient and persevere and persist. And so the river is life. It's the river
Mm.
of life. And so why, to your point, why would you want to hold it back? I just want to get in the boat and just see where life is going to take me, right? But the other thing you bring up so well is this idea of suffering. And suffering is very different than pain. You're right. Pain you cannot control unless you take drugs, which I don't. Uh, I'll deal with the pain and try to learn from the pain what it has to teach me. And if I'm having headaches, I don't want to take aspirin. If I'm having headaches, I'm going to ask the question, why are these headaches? Why is my head hurt so much? If I can't sleep at night, I'm not going to take sleeping pills. I call it night school. If I'm awake at night, I'm at night school. What do I need to know right now why I'm awake? What's going on in my life? What do I need to pay attention to? Let's not anesthetize myself to life. That's getting out of the river. That's being fearful. I love myself too much. I want to examine what's going on. So pain, you can control pain, but you're not going to, with drugs, but you can't get to the essence of what the pain really means, why you have it. Now, what you can control is suffering. And the reason you can control suffering is this. The Buddhists say suffering is caused by two things. The two things are this. You either want what you don't have, or you have what you don't want. And that's suffering. So look at some examples. I want what I don't have. I want that new, beautiful car. I want that home by the beach. I want that job. I want that position. I want that salary. And I don't have it. I'm suffering. So wanting what you don't have is suffering. But the other side of that coin is suffering too. And that is not wanting what you have. That's suffering. If I'm trying to fight the headache, I don't want the headache. I don't want what I have. And I start to fight it. And I fight it. And so that's suffering. And that increases the pain. That increases the suffering. And so those two things are controllable. And they're not easy. It takes work. And this isn't the work of psychology.
This episode is brought to you by Whoop. For the last several years, I have not taken this off my wrist. Okay, maybe I have, but it was just to change the colors. I truly trust Whoop. It's a wearable that lets me know about my resting heart rate variability, respiratory rate, and so much more. I wake up in either the green, yellow, or red, and I know if I should prioritize training and working out harder, or I need to prioritize recovery. I was always looking for ways to optimize and take my performance and training to the next level. Whoop's helped me do that. If you're looking to get started, here's a free wristband and a free first month. And if you don't like it, you can return it at no cost. All you have to do is go to the following: join.whoop.com/MGPP. That's join.whoop.com/MGPP. Mark Lassini Peak Performance, my clients, I trust Whoop. You should too. Enjoy. Let me know how you get on. Now, back to the episode. In terms of what I'm hearing from you, and just staying on the metaphor there of water, really good friend of mine. He's episode 6, I believe, on this podcast. His name is Ben Ives. He was a character coach of mine. He lost his daughter to childhood cancer. He goes and surfs in the ocean for a few hours every morning. He says to be closer to her. He never uses the word loss when he describes her. He talks about that spirit still being alive.
Right.
But what I want to bring up inside this discussion, I brought up that I was moved that you had work on self-awareness, because I think it starts and ends there. I think always like looking at self-discovery and seeing how life is affecting you and how you can navigate it better to understand yourself. It's a more of a platform and a portal to understand yourself. You talked about emotional management and inside the book. And the reason why I bring that up is because I don't think it's talked about enough. Emotional regulation, or what I call emotional fitness. And the way I talk about it is it's very hard, if you can do it at all, to control your emotions. They're almost like waves of an ocean, right? If I say, I really love the blue shirt you have on right now, that gives you an emotion whether you want it or not. And then you get to say, is he being sarcastic or is he being authentic with me? And I love how you brought up emotional management, because I think it's a dire need right now. It was said to me that how you feel is two things: the pictures in your head and the words you say to yourself. But I really think that that word piece matters. That you how you're getting your communication with yourself in order, telling yourself the right story is the best way to manage those emotions. And I want to throw that your way because I don't hear enough people talking about emotional management. In the same way, I don't hear enough people talking about spirituality in the way you do. So can I lob that up to you and say, why did you put emotional management in there, and why is that important to you?
Well, it's important to all of us. Again, we get back to fear and love. See, I'm really simplifying life here for everyone, and let's look at it from a fearful place. When you're afraid, you start losing your emotional connection. Fear creates a whole plethora of emotions. When you're afraid, you get angry, you get depressed, you get anxious, you get fearful, you get all of these things. When you exhibit love in life, then you become optimistic, not pessimistic, as fear would give you. You become more in tune with yourself. You become more aware. So functioning out of love is emotional regulation, and you have to look at it because why am I getting deregulated? Why am I losing my emotional stability? It's probably out of fear. You're afraid you're not good enough. You're not uh, uh, you're not something. You have what you don't want, or you don't have what you want. Uh, so in order to do the work uh, in life that you need to do, let me erase that. I was going down a different path there. In order for you to be, in order for you to love yourself,
Mm,
you have to be able to, you have to be able to marinate yourself in the kind of elevated emotions that are going to make you function at a higher level. And in order to do that, it takes thought. It takes time. And thought equals feelings, and feelings equal function
mm.
all the time, not once in a while, all the time. I might get off track here, so bring me back. If I'm feeling pessimistic and I'm feeling less than and I'm feeling unprepared when I get up in the morning, it's not going to be a good day. If I get up in the morning and I'm feeling optimistic and I'm feeling well prepared and I'm feeling loved and cared for and empowered and I feel ready, and uh, you have to agree with me, it's probably going to be a good day. I
Right,
did that to explain that there's a formula here, and that is thoughts equal feelings, and those feelings equal how you're going to function.
right.
So to me, I cannot live my life in upheaval, never knowing how, or not knowing how I'm going to respond when I get up in the morning and I'm not feeling confident and I'm not feeling optimistic. I have to do something about that. So I have to realize that my thought, these are thoughts. They're thoughts I'm having. I could easily have the other thoughts, the other side of the equation. And these thoughts are going to determine how I function. When I got on this podcast this morning with you, I made sure I took 5 minutes to get in touch with my higher sense of self. I started having thoughts about this is you, Jerry. This is a good opportunity to help others and to serve people. I got in touch with those feelings, which made me optimistic and confident and prepared. Even though I didn't prepare anything, like literally prepare something, the preparation's been going on for many years, over 50 years. So the preparation is in there. I have to trust it. And what's coming out today are those years of preparation. So I never have to really sit down and prepare for anything. I just have to trust and believe in myself, which comes up to the whole idea of self love, which then comes back to the whole idea of awareness. All of this stuff is interrelated. So, aware, exactly. So, one of the things in this new book, Dare to Love, is I have a whole section on awareness and self love. And I ask a series of 40 questions, penetrating, profound, deep questions that I'll guarantee you, Mark, when you answer these questions, it'll be transformative for you. Just answering the questions, they might take a year to answer. I don't want you to answer them in an afternoon. I want you to think about it. And why? Because it comes back to all of what you're saying. This whole idea of awareness, self-awareness is, someone once said, self-aware, I forget who it was, and I just wrote it the other day, but self-awareness is perhaps the uh, most essential aspect of being a great leader, of being a great person. It's all about self-awareness. And when you go down the road of self-awareness, what happens is you get a better sense about who you are. Now you can love who you are and become aware of who you really are. Like I'm not Jerry Lynch, the author, the athlete. That's not who I am. Those are things that I do.
Mm,
But who I am is is very different. I'm a caring, kind, loving, grateful. Uh, I like to think fearless. I like to think selfless. At times, I don't measure up with those, but person and who wants to make a difference. That's why I'm here. I'm here as I'm a servant. That's the other thing I am. I'm a servant.
mm,
And so I know this about myself because I've gone through this process. That's self-love. Now we come back to the whole idea of love. And you cannot love another unless you love yourself. You might
mm,
think you love another person when you don't love yourself, but that's not true love. True love comes from feeling the love of yourself and not feeling like you need to get anything from these people. All you want to do is give. Self-love comes back to giving. I feel
mm.
so good about myself. I don't need anything from you today, Mark. I don't need accolades. I don't need recognition. I don't, all I want to do is show up and give. And I
And I
want to
mean,
do that because I know who I am.
and I'll tell you, you've certainly done that. Okay, awareness, we are birds of a feather on that. I just want to amplify what you were saying about thoughts leading to feelings, which leads to how you function. I want to amplify and turn up functionality to this word that I keep coming back to as of late. I heard it, and then the definition of it which was vitality. You can be in a state of functionality or vitality, and vitality has two definitions: irreplaceable and then life force energy. And how cool would it be to become the irreplaceable life force energy of your own life through a state of vitality and bringing yourself through better thoughts, through better feelings, through better relationships, through better connection, through better healthy choices, health meaning wholeness, to bring the whole wheel of life together and get into a state of vitality. I think when you start to approach life from that regard, it's much better. You have a lens on it and you're in a state that's telling yourself a better story that allows you to use better strategies. So, Jerry, for people that are listening and they're on board and they're like, dare to lead, I'm on it. I want to do that, right? I want to love more. What would be practical steps you would have them do? And I point here towards your essential absolutes that I've heard about, right? That you kind of have a checklist of your own, but could you share how people could start taking steps towards loving themselves and then their vital
Yeah,
life better?
great question. And are we getting ready to start another hour? Is that what we're doing here?
No, we could start
Because
to descend
no,
here.
no, seriously. No, again, once again, you're bringing up a brilliant comment and a brilliant question. I remember recently talking with somebody who's struggling in life because they they're smoking cigarettes, and he said to me, he says, "I've tried everything in the book. I can't stop smoking cigarettes. I've worn the patches. I've gone to seminars. I've gone to self-help groups. I've read all the books that's possible. I've taken this medication." And I say, "Why do you smoke?" And he didn't have an answer. And I said, "Okay, you cannot ever stop smoking until you start loving yourself. If you love yourself, you'll stop smoking."
Mm,
And he thought for a minute and he says, "Well, my God, I never thought of it that way." And I was thinking, yeah, the bottom line to that story is if we're struggling with who we are, we have to look at what we're struggling with. What is the struggle? And come back to who we are and ask the questions. It comes back to awareness of yourself. And once you answer questions that are posed to you, and I've spent a lot of time constructing these questions, once you answer the questions, then you start to begin to understand who you are and what your purpose is here. Now you start to love yourself. I loved myself much better when I found out why I'm doing the work I'm doing. I do. I love myself much better because it's such a higher calling than I'm here to get what I can out of life and get more fun and get more joy and get more, get more, get more. When I got to the point of how can I give? How can I give? Well,
Give.
one of the ways I give is I write books, so I'm giving all the time, and so I become unselfish and give and practice that. So it's a tough one, and if you grew up in a dysfunctional environment, a family, there's a lot of work to be done.
Mm.
You know, I think the idea of psychology offers many models to help people with getting to care about themselves more and love themselves. And when you get that feeling, I can't describe it to you, but when you get the feeling of, I really love who I am and why I'm here. And everything else falls to the wayside. You don't care about what people think about you. You don't care about how you look. You don't care about how you sound. You don't care about what you say. You just care about giving. And that comes from the heart, and you can't go wrong.
The more you give, the more you live, Jerry. I think this is where I'll build a dam of today's river because I have seven more
Oh,
topics that I want to talk to you about. And I
well,
think
we
it's
can do it again.
a great place to wrap because uh, you're leaving listeners wanting more. And then I want to point them to your website, wayofchampions.com. That's wayofchampions.com. And the release of your book coming out, Dare to Love, Dare to Love.
There,
And I'd leave it in your hands to take us home. I'm really grateful for your time. Thank you so much for sharing all this wisdom. I'll be thinking about it for well over a week and pulling apart the things that stuck out to me most and connections that I've been thinking about, but now I'm able to put together. I love how you're able to intertwine and connect things that I haven't seen put together. And my biggest takeaway is that lesson of opposites, which is in the book, but the biggest one seems to be fear versus love. So thank you very much for sharing that. And why don't you take us home in terms of, is there anything that we didn't talk about that you wish we did? And this podcast is all about gratitude and greatness. So if there's anything there.
well, to be honest, there are many things that I know you and I could talk about, and we go for a long time, and it would all be fun, and it would all be important. But I'm always trying to simplify life, and I really believe, uh, after all of these years of looking at everything, I believe I'm at a place now where things have come together for me, and the people that I work with, and the teaching that I do, and I really do believe I'm either functioning during the day, all my decisions and all of my directions that I go is either based on what I'm afraid of. And that's why I made that decision. I'm afraid of losing, so I did this, or I'm afraid of not being good enough, so I do this. Or I'm coming from love, and it's real simple. When I decide to come from love, everything that we talked about today, whether it's self awareness, whether it's competitive juices, whether it's performing at higher levels, whether it's being the best coach you can be, it all boils down to the uh, love is an umbrella, and what comes under that are all of the wonderful qualities uh, uh, of uh, of giving and kindness and helping people feel important and valued and relevant, and uh, everything under that umbrella of love uh, determines the direction that I go, because it's all about thoughts and feelings, which then therefore equal function. I want to make one last comment, uh, and I'm very sensitive to this. I was talking about how early on, most people would consider me a sports psychologist. And I sort of drifted away for that. And I gave you the reasons, I believe, which was sports psychology is a great science. it does a lot of good for people. It just didn't go far enough for me. So, in all due respect to, I know Rob Gilbert. I don't know him like you know him, but I met Rob many years ago, early on in my career, and he's a good man and he's done really good work. And he, I know he aligns with sports psychology, and I'm glad he's there. I'm glad you're there. I'm glad all people who are doing good work. There are a lot of charlatans out there maybe trying to make a dollar under the guise of sports psychology, but people like yourself and Alan Goldberg and so many good great sports psychologists out there, I just saw that I needed personally to go in a different direction and take it a little deeper. And but I still use a lot of the science of sports psychology in my work. I'm just writing more and more about the soul work, and how that relates to performance overall, not just on the pitch, on the field, in the locker room, but in life. So,
And what I will say to that is, I didn't hear until the last year of my life that the root of the word psyche is soul, right? So when there's a pathology of the of the psyche, you actually have a pathology or a sickness of your spirit. And I thought that was fascinating, right? And you and I are on the same wavelength there. That it's not
and
just mind,
nobody,
body.
and so many, you ask, you poll psychologists, out of every 100 psychologists you poll, they won't know what you just said. They won't
Hmm.
understand that's the soul work, that's the spirit. So
And to
sports,
take us home, I hope that anybody who is touching this field and looking to lead other people through sports psychology, performance psychology, is looking at it from the lens that you do, which is through love, through service, and through giving. And like I said, thank you so much of your time. I'm sure this is the first of many conversations between us, and I'm really grateful for your time.
oh, I hope there's more. I really do. Thank you so much.